Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and we are going to talk about the Lost Mine of Phandelver. This is a Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide, so if you are a player and you're playing this game right now, this is a good time for you to leave because I don't want you to spoil it for yourself. I know your Dungeon Master won't appreciate it, and so therefore it would be a good idea to go and watch one of my other videos. Or come back and watch this video when you finish playing through the Lost Mine of Phandelver, or at least the section that covers this particular character. Okay, today we're going to talk about Brughor AxeBiter. Now how's that pronounced? Is it Brughor? Is it Brughor? Is it Brughor? I mean, who knows? Pick a name and pronunciation. Well, the name is there, it's written down. Pick a pronunciation, go with it. I don't think it's a big deal myself. I've heard people pronounce Brughor different ways with stress on different vowels and different consonants. So I don't think it's a big issue. Do it how you think it's going to work. So if you turn to page 35 of The Lost Mine of Phandelver, you will find information on Brughor AxeBiter. There's not a huge amount. And I know for a few people who are running the game, that's not really going to be good enough. Brughor AxeBiter leads a scouting band of 6 orcs and one very filthy ogre named Gog. Not Grog, but Gog, G-O-G. Brughor is a very savage, brutal orc who is more interested in murdering and looting than scouting, unfortunately for everybody else. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to worry about all the problems he's going to cause, and he does. He causes quite a few problems. Brughor and the orcs are from the Many Arrows tribe. So that's the Many Arrows tribe. It's also classified as an orc kingdom. It's been around quite a long time for those of you who don't know too much about Many Arrows. But yes, it is a kingdom. It's got a capital. It's well established. And of course, the leadership has changed many times. And it generally tends to work like a monarchy rather than anything else. So the same family of orcs tends to keep ruling Many Arrows, like many tribes and monarchies work. It's essentially, I know you're thinking, how come orcs have a monarchy? Well, it happens. And this one certainly does. The Many Arrows Kingdom are well organized and they have a capital. The capital is called Dark Arrow Keep. Well, that's essentially the key location. It has sort of changed a little bit, and there is discussions that there are in fact 2 possible locations for their capital, but we're going to stay with that particular story for now. Now, many stories have been circulating through the Sword Coast and have made their way to the Many Arrows tribe or kingdom, stories of new settlers near Phandalin and renewed traffic along the old Tribor Trail. And this has resulted in quite a lot of interest by Many Arrows Kingdom, and they have sent Brughor AxeBiter and his scouting band. They've been sent to Wyventor Crag, not necessarily exactly to that location. Brughor has selected that as a location that he thinks will work for them, but essentially they've been sent very close to that location where Phandalin is, and their job is to scout and collect information. The crag, or Wyventor Crag, is northeast of the Sword Mountains. Now, if you'll have a look on the map right here, you'll see it's marked with an X right at the bottom on the left side, just below Coneberry, and the old Elwell is very close to that. It's pretty much, you can see it's almost right beside each other, but it's south of, well, not south of, but it's northeast of Phandalin. Okay, so that's its location. What else do we know about Brughor? Brughor has been tasked with spying and scouting the area around Neverwinter Woods and Phandalin, as I had already pointed out. Part of his job is to locate human settlements, waylay important travellers that they might find useful as ransom or for collecting additional information, while not drawing attention to himself. The whole point is not to draw attention to yourself as a scouting group and then feed that information back to the Many Arrows leadership. Unfortunately, that's not what Brughor AxeBiter has been doing. Brughor AxeBiter is not good at following orders and has done the exact opposite. Pardon me. So instead of keeping a low profile, he has plundered homesteads, killed people, scared off miners and merchants, attacked caravans moving along Tribor Trail, and this has caused rather a lot of people know there are orcs in the area as a result of this. So what does that mean essentially for Brughor and his band of scouts? Well, it means that it's resulted in the leadership of Phandelver, Harbin Wester, the town master, putting a bounty on the orcs, or any orcs whatsoever, including Brughor AxeBiter. And the bounty is 100 gold pieces to sort the problem out, which is code for kill, eliminate, dispose of, permanently. So he's got a price on his head, including his scouting band. Brughor stands about just a little bit taller than most other orcs. He carries a large great axe with notches cut into the handle, marking the marking the poor souls that he has butchered along his travels. AxeBiter has sort of a green-grey skin tone and is covered in many small yellow scars from his many battles or injuries that he's taken as he's been doing his work, as you might... Couldn't you call it work? I'd say it's just pleasure and recreation for this rather brutal orc. Brughor's scouting party has amassed a small treasure chest full of coins and perfumes from several of the homesteads that he has plundered and raided, and it's all detailed on page 35. I believe it's like 750 copper pieces, 180 silver pieces, about 62 electrum pieces, and 30 gold pieces, and 3 vials of perfume. Who knows what Brughor and the orcs thought they might do with the perfume, but if it was designed and intended to be used to sell off to somebody, that makes a lot of sense. If they were planning to use it themselves, they should have used it right now, because they already smell really, really bad. A fight with Brughor AxeBiter is basically going to be to the death. He doesn't usually take prisoners or captives, so if you wind up in a bad situation with Brughor AxeBiter, the chances are he is more likely to kill you than to capture you. Now this causes a problem for anybody who's a dungeon master, particularly if the situation goes a little bit haywire and you really need your players to survive and you don't want them to wind up being disposed of. So take what I've just said with a grain of salt. You are the dungeon master. You make the final decision about how the adventure will be run. It doesn't matter what's written in the adventure book. It doesn't matter what Fred says or what anybody else says. You decide how it's going to take place. But I felt like Brughor is the sort of individual who really doesn't allow for quarter. He is a fight to the death kind of orc. Brughor AxeBiter is fearless and bloodthirsty, which is made much worse by the fact that he has a ogre named Gog within the band who is just as evil, brutal, and bloodthirsty as he is, and enjoys causing pain. Rather sick. I know it sounds sick, and it is. It's definitely. But the two individuals themselves, you eliminate Brughor, and Gog is going to lord it over the rest of the orcs. If you eliminate Gog, Brughor is quite capable of dealing with his band of orcs without any trouble whatsoever, just because of his sheer size, mass, weight, and he's quite smart. He knows how to deal with things. Brughor doesn't believe in mercy, as I said, and would prefer death himself. Now, because he doesn't believe in mercy for others, he certainly won't believe in mercy or being given mercy from somebody else. So if you decide, no, I'm not going to kill Brughor, the chances are he will probably just keep on fighting, because he would prefer to die over disgrace or being captured and shown to be lesser than what he believes himself to be. He's got a sense of pride to him, even if he is a bloodthirsty orc. Brughor also knows that Gog will fight to the death by his side, and this just makes him far more confident and seriously far more dangerous to deal with. He knows that the other orcs don't have his raw courage, and he threatens them with shaming tactics. It's not normally beating. He doesn't normally beat his orcs, although that could take place, but he would shame them because he believes that this is shaming tactics and strategies and methods will bring out the orcish nature in his band, and that's what he sees as the important focus for him when he's leading them. It's about making sure they become more like an orc, more like him. Scary thought, I know. Brughor has made such a name for himself that he has actually quite a few enemies that have sort of pinpointed him as a problem. And Brughor AxeBiter and his orc scouts are hated by the Red Wizard Hum Cost of Old Alwell. Now, I've already done a video on Hum Cost. You're welcome to go and check it out. I think there's two. There's the live stream and the edited video. Now, why does Hum Cost hate Brughor AxeBiter? Well, he knows, one, that orcs are they're like a wild card. You just don't know what they're going to do. He also knows that the orc presence is very close to his camp. They're not that far away. They won't necessarily know exactly where Brughor's camp is, but he knows it's rough. It can't be too far off, and that they have been moving around this location and causing a lot of trouble. Now, usually Brughor doesn't get tangled up with the undead. It's undead. There's no real fun in that. You can't really steal or plunder anything from something that's dead. They have garbage, right? But Hum Cost is a different story. He has quite a lot of different things that would be interesting to Brughor. So Hum Cost would much prefer to see Brughor AxeBiter and his orcs disposed of, and probably will pay or do a favour or request some sort of favour if the player's characters decide to do so, to get rid of Brughor AxeBiter. Now, Brughor AxeBiter is a cunning warrior. He is not stupid. Now, I know when you start looking at the orc stat block, you say, well, Fred, though, look, your standard orc has an intelligence of 7. Stop looking at intelligence. Intelligence is not important. Have a look at wisdom. Wisdom is 11 for a standard orc, and Brughor AxeBiter is not a standard orc. Now, the adventure actually states what sort of changes you should make to Brughor AxeBiter. He has more hit points, but you should also sort of view Brughor AxeBiter as probably not being quite as stupid as the other orcs. And really, orcs aren't stupid. They just don't have a high intelligence. They have an average wisdom, which means they are dangerous. So Brughor AxeBiter is a cunning warrior who understands battle tactics. And make sure to use some decent orc battle tactics. I have done videos on orcs and what sort of battle tactics you can use with an orc, so go check out those videos if you're unsure what to do. There is a website called The Monsters Know, which I believe you'll find a lot of information on how to run lots of different monsters. It's not all going to be gold there, just like my own content, but I'm sure it will give you some ideas. So Brughor, he is aware that few creatures can stop a large group of orcs charging into close quarter with great axes, particularly if they focus on one foe. And that's what I would probably do with your orcs. When they decide to charge in and cause strife for anybody, I would probably target one particular player character till they go down. Now, it's up to you whether you keep throwing in attacks while they're down and chop them up into pieces. But remember, this is an adventure that was designed for people freshly coming into the game. So normally, the Lost Mine of Phandelver is used by new Dungeon Masters or Dungeon Masters who have been out of the mix for a while and are coming back into it. There are people who have been playing for some time who have used the Lost Mine of Phandelver, but often it is used by new Dungeon Masters and new people coming in. So it's up to you how you do that. I'm not going to tell you how you should deal with that, but I would at least be focusing your orc attacks on one particular individual till they go down, and then shift over to somebody else until they go down, and just work your way through the players' characters and the party that they have presented. Brughor has selected a cave to set up camp, and I would say now when in the adventure there's no map. Okay, there's no map. In the adventure it says that the camp is basically a cave. I would say that Brughor has probably selected a cave to set up camp, but it's just outside. The camp itself is probably more likely just outside, but all of the plundered goods are hidden inside the cave or kept out of the rain and weather. So as I said, there is no map for Wyvern Tor and the Brughor AxeBiter's Orc campsite. So, and if you have a look on the internet, you probably won't find any maps of Wyvern Tor Crag, which is where they are set up. They are set up in or close to a cave, either in or outside of the cave. Wyvern Tor Crag is basically just a large hill that's not quite a full-blown mountain. That's all it is. And there's a lot of brush and trees sort of scattered around in these hills around the Wyvern Tor Crag itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you with two possible ideas for maps, because I know somebody's going to ask me. So I have provided two possible maps or setup ideas for this video, and you can work your way through this. The first one is an Orc Brigade Camp, and it just sort of lays out what it would look like. Now, I would imagine that the fire would not be going during the day, and it's probably only used at night to keep people warm. Not people, orcs warm. To keep your orcs warm, and to cook food if they decide to cook food. It's not required for light, because as a general rule, orcs can see in the dark, and even if you don't get the full benefit of bright light when you're in the dark, which you don't with dark vision, because orcs have dark vision, by lighting a fire, you have just sort of announced that you are there. So the chances are that the fire does not get lit at night, so that it isn't picked up. But chances are there is a trail of smoke that occurs from time to time during the day, when they are cooking food or preparing stuff, maybe heating water or something like that. You decide how you're going to do that. Now, Brughor AxeBiter is smart enough to have done the following for his campsite, in my view. You do not need to listen to any of this, by the way, okay? You can ignore all of it. My assessment is that Brughor AxeBiter would not put a campfire in the cave. If they are using the cave as their campsite, the fire is probably just outside of the cave and probably just off to the side, so that the wind doesn't blow, and there'll be some sort of brush in front of the cave entrance to stop the smoke from the fire blowing into the cave and causing a whole lot of problems, like people choking. Because that's what happens, right? You put a campfire in a cave and you wind up with it full of smoke and you can't stay there anymore. So that's just one piece of advice I have for you. Ensure that the cave has a rear escape route that is difficult to find, and probably near impossible to find. It is not difficult to make it very, very hard to find the exit route for a cave. So if you've got your cave entrance, your back route is probably going to be well disguised, because it doesn't have a lot of use. There won't be footprints there. It's probably completely concealed with either boulders or brush or something, and it might even be very, very small and hard to find, and that makes it even more difficult. So there's not going to be a lot of telltale signs. So making a perception check or even an investigation check for a back route into a cave doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. But it's a different story when it comes to finding the front entrance of a cave where orcs are moving in and out of it to go and do their scouting, their plundering, their raiding, and their killing. Okay? Alright, now, this is one setup. Here is number 2 setup. And I only just found it for those of you who are wondering, how on Fred, it says Wyvern Tor, and you said I couldn't find a map of Wyvern Tor. I'm talking about Wyvern Tor as in terms of the outside section of Wyvern Tor. As far as I know, there is no sort of crag map that you can use. But I did find this, and it's supposed to be, somebody's made it up. It looks really pretty. It has all of the basics that you need. It's a very, very small location, and you could use this quite easily in your game if you wanted to. You'll need to let me know if you want access to the maps, if you can't find them. I just Googled them. Just type in Google it, and you'll find maps just like these. Otherwise, let me know, and I will see if I can't get them into a location where you can download them. Make sure that you arrange some sort of alarm system or traps around the perimeter of the campsite or the cave entrance. My feeling is that Brughor would do this, and anybody would, whether it be an orc or it be the player's characters who are human or elves or dwarves or whatever. When you set up camp, you set up some sort of alarm system. Just in case somebody decides to venture into your location. Now that might be an alarm system with a tripwire, it might be just things that, like a bell, it might be things that are going to make noise, it might be just scattering dry leaves around the camp location, so that when people stand in that area it makes a lot of noise, because dried up leaves are quite noisy when you stand on them. You could hear it for a long way away, provided you don't have orcs bellowing and making lots of noise. And the last thing is setting up. So Brughor would set up a reliable guard or sentry and probably punish orcs brutally for not keeping a good watch. That's my view. If you're going to have any kind of location where you need it to be protected and you decide to use a guard or a sentry, if they're not doing their job properly, there's always severe punishments, correct? Okay, so that covers pretty much everything I have on Brughor AxeBiter of the Many Arrows tribe or kingdom, and his little band of scouts. Now, when it comes to how do I talk Brughor, how do I talk Orc, my suggestion to you is just buggerize the English language. That's all it really is. Slur your speech. As a New Zealander, I'm very, very capable of pronouncing things that sound slurred. Just think, I've been boozing and I can't pronounce anything correctly and stick consonants in front of vowels that don't make a lot of sense and just jumble things up. There are plenty of examples out there. If you're not really worried about that sort of thing, then that's cool. In terms of an accent, I never really worry about an accent or doing a funny voice, because it's always difficult for me to maintain it, and I find at the end of the night, because I'm not a trained voice actor, my voice is really strained and sore, so I don't tend to do voices for creatures and monsters. And if I do, it's usually just a single sentence at the very beginning, and then I go back to my normal voice and I just talk and try and act the character rather than trying to do a funny voice or a voice that I think is appropriate for the creature that I'm trying to present, or the NPC. Okay, so that's it. That's everything on Brughor AxeBiter. If you found this video helpful or informative, please share and like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed, because I have more content like this. If you want to come back and watch more of it, there is plenty of more stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I have plenty of things as it happens. Make sure to hit the bell button to occasionally be notified when I am live or when I publish a new video. If you want to support my channel, you did so by watching this video. Thank you very much. I have hundreds more, plenty of stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver, plenty of stuff for players and dungeon masters. I don't do Patreon, and I don't intend to for 2019, but I do have affiliate links to the Book Depository and Amazon, where you can buy stuff online, and I get a small commission, and you pay exactly the same price as you normally would. And that's fine with me. If you want to do that, that's great. If you don't, don't. Now, when it comes to questions, give your feedback in the live chat now. So feedback, questions, feedback, your advice, how it went for you in your group. Also, too, in terms of whether you disagree or you did something a little bit different, remember, none of this is really fixed in concrete. What you get in the adventure is really a skeleton, and you have to do the rest of the work. And I've kind of tried to provide you with a little bit more or a few ideas. Now, if you're not part of the live stream, that's what the comment section is all about. So jump down in the comment section when it's published by YouTube and put in your feedback. And before I say my final words and end this particular presentation, for those of you who wanted to know, Fred, what happened to your group? Well, my group found the cave, and they were very quiet. They did not get discovered. They killed the sentry orc without too much trouble. Didn't even have a time to shout out, because they got a surprise on round one, and so they did it really quietly. They didn't use fireballs or loud techniques. They did it all very quietly. Then they set up a fire at the entrance to the cave, lit it, and just smoked the orcs out, sitting in the brush, and peppered them with ranged fire. So yes. It didn't go well for my monsters that day, and they all died horribly. But then again, my players at that time were very, very smart. Had a whole bunch of people, and they were all dungeon masters, and they all decided to sit at my table. Okay, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.